Ahead and get started. First of all, if you guys don't know me, I'm Gabby Wilson. I am the Big Ten Athletics Administration Fellow. I work a lot with the MAC to put on events like this, and we're so happy that you guys are here. Um, Jack is also here. I don't know if he wants to introduce himself as well, real quick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jack. I also work at the Mac. I am the operations assistant. I'm there helping Maurice, Julie, and everybody. So if you ever need anything from me at the Mac, I'll be always sitting there in the office. So come by, say hello.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. And so, as you guys know, this is the career convo for the sales industry. The purpose of this is to really understand the diversity in the sales industry and figure out how the skills that you're developing now as a student athlete can transfer to different industries in sales. So, first, I want to introduce our panelists really quickly. We're missing one right now, but if she enters, Jack will let us know and she'll introduce herself as well. But first, we're going to start out with Brent Idalski. He is the area manager for the Northeast as a medical device consultant at Medtronic. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Um,
you for having me.
yeah, of course. And second, we have Jason Tootin. He is the senior premium experience executive with the Detroit Pistons. So, first, I'm going to kick it off to you panelists first. Just give a high level introduction of yourself, how you got here, anything you guys want us to know for about 2 minutes. So, Brent, we can go ahead and start with you.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Really great to see all you guys, and thanks for getting on. So I'll give you a little background. So I grew up in Alpena, Michigan, about 4 hours north of Ann Arbor. Played a lot of hockey, a lot of golf growing up. I actually played 4 years of varsity golf at U of M. Graduated in '98 with a focus on marketing, and after a short stint trying to play pro golf down in Florida. I've been in the medical device industry now for about 18 years. First got into pharmaceutical sales for four in New York City and really wanted to kind of impact patients more, be more of have a consultative role. And I joined Johnson and Johnson, got a great experience there with all types of surgery, all their products. And then after that, I transitioned into robotics at Intuitive Surgical. You may have heard of the Da Vinci robot. So I spent about 5 years there. I've been with Teleflex Interventional Urology for the past 6. And as of this coming Monday, I'm joining Medtronic to help them commercialize their new robot that will compete with Intuitive Surgicals. So tons of opportunities in medical device, whether it's robotics or it's orthopedics, implants. And no 2 days are the same. So I'm looking forward to answering some of your questions coming up. And that's enough about me. Let's learn about Jason.
Awesome. Thank you, Brent. So, uh, great run through there. It's funny, we come from such different sides of the sales industry just to kind of, it reflects the diversity that you have here in what you actually do. So my walk is similar, started off at a Summer Place, University of Michigan. I was class of 2005. I was not a student athlete, but I ended up working in sports marketing for the athletic department. I ended up taking an unpaid internship, which is something that sometimes is a little bit of a challenge to accept in the short term, but definitely I would recommend if experience over short term gain. After that, I took an internship with minor league baseball at the Round Rock Express, which is a baseball team owned by Nolan Ryan. Great early experience there. Had another minor league experience with the New Orleans Zephyrs, and then I got my first chance to work in a Major Four league, the Tampa Bay Rays, where I did group sales there. Group sales is selling hospitality to larger groups of 10, 20 or larger. So working with churches, community groups, corporate groups, things like that. From there, I was able to go back to my hometown, which is Chicago, to work for the Chicago Cubs. Had a great experience both as a group sales rep and was able to take on a leadership role there, leading both the group sales as well as the regulated rooftop properties. Um, After COVID, I was a bit sort of displaced, so I ended up kind of doing some soul searching. I ended up working for the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. Did for the Chicago Red Stars, did that for about a season. And then I found my way back to the Detroit metro area working for the Red Wings. And that led me to my current role here with the Detroit Pistons, where I'm a premium experience executive Essentially, what that means is I take care of our top accounts, including courtside and suite accounts, making sure that those folks are taken care of, that those relationships are being grown and fostered, and folks continue to renew and do business with us, as well as learning and educating about different opportunities to do more with the organization.
Thank you guys so much. Cameron is here, so I'm going to introduce her really quick. We have Cameron McPherson. She's a former student athlete, and now she is a technology sales enablement specialist at IBM. So I'm going to let her go ahead and do her 2-minute overview.
Thank you, Gabby, and hi, everyone. Good to see so many faces and cameras on. It's not every day you're on a meeting with cameras on, so appreciate it. My name's Cam McPherson. I graduated from University of Michigan in 2021, so I was in your shoes not too long ago. I was on the women's swim and dive team. I was a diver. Now I am at IBM as a technology sales enablement specialist. So I've been here for about 3.5 years full time, and I was also an intern the summer before. So been at IBM for almost 5 years, including my internship. Been in a few different roles. Started out in a very outbound sales role, selling cost optimization software. Very much cold calling a ton. Really hunter mentality. Did that for about a year, and then moved over to more of a enterprise seller role, covering large accounts in the state of Texas. So JC Penney was one of my clients. Atmos Energy was a client. Selling the same software. It's in the automation portfolio. IBM has a lot of different brands. But once I did that, I switched into a new role in October of 2024, and it's more on the enablement side outside of sales. So I'm a program manager for our new sellers. So a bit of a different angle on sales. Still very new in the role, but using it as a career stepstone to see different parts of the beast IBM. So that is my sales journey. I'm excited to answer your questions today, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for that. And as we can already see, there's been a very diverse path that everyone here has taken. So we're going to go into our first question. And Cameron, we're just going to start with you because you were just talking anyway. So can you just tell us a little bit why you decided to pursue a career in sales?
Yeah, so I know as an athlete, everyone loves the competition, which is a very true answer. But also, I think in the world of sales, um, having the not the having the don't not having the luxury of a solid salary is important to know that everyone that you're working with in the world of sales kind of wants to be there. And I want to be in an atmosphere with the contagious mentality of everyone needs to work hard to essentially close deals and get our paychecks at the end of the day. So I think just having the camaraderie of a team in college and then transferring it to a sales team is you're able to really duplicate that what you had in college to the real world, which isn't always the case with every job. So that's why I chose a career in sales.
Awesome. Thank you. Jason, do you want to add to that?
Sure. It's interesting. I think sometimes your path chooses you more than you choose it. I think one of the things that I learned early on in my career when I was interning in minor league baseball was that everybody in the organization was a salesperson, so to speak. You know, whether or not they had sales in their title, the people that could build relationships that can generate revenue for the organization were the ones that were really, the most important. And even our president and our general manager were both out there, taking meetings, building relationships and bringing partnerships. So I think I learned quickly that there's always going to be a door for you if you can generate revenue. And although it wasn't something that I saw for myself when I was in college, I was an LS&A major. I realized quickly that it was a fun and desired position.
Nice. Some of the art athletes can definitely relate to being able to produce a result. So something that they can take away from that. Brent, how about you?
Yeah, so I've always been one to kind of understand that whether it's in sports or life or work. Golf was very individual, right? I still played on a team, but it was individual based. If I wanted to go try and play pro, it was still individual. I had to go sell myself and get sponsors so I could play pro. So that transitioned well into sales for me. and really my thirst for getting into surgery, right? I know it wasn't going to be a doctor. I wasn't pre-med. What's the next best thing? To be standing next to the surgeon in the OR, consulting he or she was kind of a high that I've always had. So having the ability to show your device or your robot and know that the patient on the table is probably going to have a better outcome, get back to their family quicker, get back to their job quicker was something very intriguing for me.
Awesome. Appreciate those answers. So you guys have kind of already talked about this, but what has your career path really been like? Like, how would you describe it in a way when it comes to where you are today? How would you describe your career path? Go ahead, Brent. You can go first.
Sure. So I mentioned I started off in pharmaceutical sales in New York City just to kind of get in healthcare, right? Because I didn't have a healthcare background in school. I was a marketing focus. Thought I wanted to go into like something sports related. So once I went into pharmaceutical sales, um, that kind of ran its course. And then I had a lot of friends that were like, look, you can be in surgery and you can be, working with hospital executives and surgeons. And that was very desirable for me because it was more of an instant gratification when you could see your device being utilized and optimized, right? So the way my career kind of progressed is really from probably complexity of devices I've sold. When I worked for J&J, I sold probably 40 different devices, whether they're vessel sealers or staplers that could cut, transect colon, lung, other organs, to then evolving into robotic surgery, where you're training the surgeon how to operate 15 feet away from where the patient's actually laying on the bed, which I thought was really cool. And now you have AI getting built into it. So for me, it's the technology has kind of progressed and the complexity has progressed as well. But the nice thing, my common denominator, I guess, has been the training that has culminated from each company. Procedures are always going to stay the step by step about the same. The human body and the organs aren't going to change. So once you get that footprint and baseline, kind of helps you continue on and move to other companies if you want to.
Cool. I like how there's a lot of innovation in your job as well. And I know we have a lot of different creative athletes here. So thinking about how you can even use your creative aspect in this type of industry is cool to think about. So,
Yep.
Jason, how about you?
Yes, I would say similar in a lot of ways. I think my career has been sort of a lot of sort of leveling up, gaining skill set, building relationships, and using that to parlay into the next opportunity. It's funny, I mean, similar to Brent, I mean, I learned early on that my physical attributes weren't going to take me that far on the field, so I had to sort of pivot and find a way to use my mind, and that's why we go to University of Michigan Ann Arbor in a lot of ways is for the education. But starting off in the minor leagues, I was able to get some good core experiences. It's a small skeleton staff generally in an organization like that, so you're not making a lot of money. You're working a lot of hours, but you're gaining a lot of skill set and a lot of knowledge. And then being able to go to the Tampa Bay Rays, which was a major league team, but arguably one of the worst teams in the league with a really rough stadium. I think selling some more distressed inventory, selling a tough, low demand environment helped me sort of sharpen my sword, so to speak, and get a lot more skills there. And I was able to parlay that into the role with the Cubs, which is considered to be one of the better teams in sports, and then take that to a director level leadership role with the NWSL, and where I was able to have a little bit more autonomy and decision making. So I would say essentially just continuing to gain skills, to learn from every situation, and use that to level up.
Awesome. That's very true. With the fluctuating opinions about how a team is doing, it can definitely impact how easy or difficult it is to sell seats. So, okay. How about you, Cameron?
Yes. So I will ditto everything Brent and Jason have said. I don't have as much experience in the corporate world yet. So I would say how have I gotten to where I've been today is I've really leveraged my network and made sure that I have been intentional with choosing my mentors. So I would say when I started at IBM, it's such a big spot, and I'm not one with a 5-year plan. I'm just kind of not go with the flow, but just looking one step ahead, not five. So when I started at IBM, I wanted to talk to as many people as possible. I wanted to network with one person a week. But I quickly learned that those I wasn't being very intentional with it. So I would say once I doubled down and found mentors that stuck with me that I clicked with, really leveraging them to connect me with people that could potentially see I could see as a new manager or be the next step in my career because they know my strengths and weaknesses and what I'm looking for. So overall, I would say each opportunity that I've had at IBM has been from someone who has been within my network. So just really following up with those with your mentor, staying in touch and staying relevant, I would say will get you places in your career.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So the next question is kind of funny. I used to work for Cutco, and a lot of people, it's like, okay, for those who don't know, it's like a knife company. Thank you. And so a big part of like why people are so triggered by Cutco is they think it's a pyramid scheme. And so that may or may not be true. But in your opinion, like what is a sales industry myth that you would like to bust, essentially? Cameron,
Yeah.
I want to start with you.
Okay. This was a hard one. I was thinking about this one for a while. And also I love Cutco knives, so totally respect you, Gabby, for selling those Cutco. I would say in sales is you don't need to be an extrovert to be good at sales. I think that has been, I feel like a lot of people shy away from sales because they get intimidated by the amount of talking and relationship building you have to do. But coming from a person who I would say I'm more introverted than extroverted, you're able to make those connections and really step outside your comfort zone and grow in sales if you have the slightest bit of interest. So I would say that myth is you do not need to be an extrovert to be good at sales.
That's a great one. Thank you. Jason, what about you?
Yeah, I would absolutely second that, Cameron. And I love this one just because I feel like there's so many misconceptions about sales out there. And I think that, the University of Michigan and other universities are doing a better job of educating. But there's always this myth of, oh, it's a sort of a sleazy used car salesman comes to mind when you talk about a salesperson. And I think what I learned is that couldn't be further from the truth. To Cameron's point, you don't necessarily need to be a slick, silver tongue type of person. Really, what you learn is that it is being as consultative as possible and listening as much as possible is really even more important. So I think that being a salesperson is looking for opportunities for people, looking to understand their challenges and their goals long term and how you can provide a solution to help them get where they want to go from point A to point B. And by doing so, you only learn that if you're very sort of consultative and listening constantly, understanding people, understanding organizations and their needs, and then providing solutions. So it couldn't be further from that sort of used car salesman or stereotype.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Cammy and Jason said. I mean, if I walk into an OR, right, and a surgeon's doing a type of procedure and, I don't have an MD behind my name, if I'm not trying to, one, learn what they're doing, what their technique is, but most importantly, like you both said, where is the opportunity that my device could enhance the patient's outcome? That's why I'm here, right? And sometimes a surgeon, it takes them a while to let you in, right? You have to build credibility. You come in, I've seen other reps do it. They come in and they try and do a quick sell. Hey, doc, will you try my stapler tomorrow, please? I'll be back in town. I have 3 samples in the car. I mean, those reps get shut down so quickly. The better reps that I see, at least in my industry, they might spend 2 to 6 weeks shadowing a surgeon who is their target just to get to know them, just to understand their why, to know their background, right? That's very important. So, I mean, the used car salesy type, right? They're few and far between, I think, in all industries. And like Jason said, if you're good at kind of trying to identify the need and then sell your value proposition, you're going to have a lot of success doing it. And I think it's fun. It's it's kind of a high that you get no matter what industry you're in, and it makes you want to keep doing more of that, right? So
Okay. I think a common theme of it's not necessarily about your personality, if you're an introvert or extrovert, it's about building that like relationship, equity, and credibility is what's going to really get you to where you want to be. So I think that those are great answers. Okay, so our next question is, in your opinion, why do student athletes excel in the sales industry as a whole? So anyone can take it if you're willing.
I can start since my mic's off. No, I just think that, most student athletes are competitive, right? And they're also disciplined. So that's a great combination. I know the companies I've been with in the past, they look for, someone who's well versed, has a strong education, maybe military, and maybe athletic background, and because they've had a pretty good track record with those folks. So I think that's very important, and I see a commonality. I mean, I work with numerous former college athletes that kind of have that drive, and I think that inner self motivation to kind of get up to speed quickly and to maintain that tenacity and that high energy, and that's what you need in sales.
I can go next. Similar to what Brent said, I would just say, yeah, discipline. It's kind of in sales, there's ups and downs, and it's who's going to show up when you're in a down. And I think as athletes, you don't want to go to morning practice. You don't want to do a hard workout in the middle of the season. So having that and learning that discipline and translating that to your career, I think is where it separates the athlete from the rest of the employees. So I would say the discipline to keep working and pushing during the crappy times.
Yes, and I would say I'm also a member of the MAC Employer Advisory Board, and there's a lot of great organizations that are represented on that board, as well as not represented on that board, that are looking for student athletes and find great value in the tenacity that you bring, the believing in process, willingness to do the hard work. I think a lot of the skills that you have are extremely transferable, and work with Maurice, work with Julie on how to sort of tell your story and do that, like working on a team, wanting to be the best at your position or your skill, but also, working amongst others to raise the level of the team as a whole, overcoming adversity, accepting feedback, I think is a good one as well. A lot of folks come in to the corporate world and they get feedback and they might sort of be taken aback, or they might not respond as well. I think athletes are used to receiving feedback in real time, and I think that's a huge asset for you.
Yeah, for sure. There are so many skills that you guys are developing right now that you can just continue to sharpen. That are definitely transferable to the real world. So now we want to hear a little more about your experience. So, what were the best lessons that you learned during your experience at Michigan that have helped you in your career? So, Brent, if you want to take that, love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's probably a lot of things that I wish I had been better at when I was a student athlete, right? Because you're trying to juggle academics and sports. And with golf, we had a spring and a fall season. So we traveled a lot, believe it or not, for golf, which kind of seems like a hobby and not a sport. But yeah, there's just I think having the inner drive, like Jason said, be accepting to constructive criticism as soon as you can, because that's going to make you better quicker, right? And don't clam up. I mean, that's a huge one right there. And then was there a part two to your question, or it was just that one question?
It was just that one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lessons that you've learned that you feel like.
Yeah. And then I think having being self-aware and being highly organized, right? Highly organized in preparation for me is crucial for my job. I have to kind of pre-call plan when I go meet with whether it's somebody in the C-suite in the hospital system or a surgeon that knows a heck of a lot more than I do about surgery. I have to try and build that equal surgeon stature somehow with knowledge so I can gain credibility. So I think school taught me, trying to be constantly working on being prepared right? And being organized. Because if you don't have those two, it's gonna be tough for you to walk into a meeting and have success.
Yeah, just a follow-up, Brent. Like, what tangible things or what habits have you created to help yourself get to that kind of equal level stature with surgeons?
Well, yeah, so we have to go over a lot of clinical studies, right? So if I'm going into a GYN surgery or a thoracic surgery, I have to really understand what the challenges of the surgeon is going to be. Let's take, for example, they're resecting part of the lung because the patient has lung cancer and they've smoked for years, right? So what are some of the downsides? What could go wrong? How important is a staple line? Does my product give a superior staple line, right? Where they're not gonna leak and they're not gonna pose a problem to the surgeon and the patient, post-op. So really trying to dive in and get kind of granular with what the surgeon needs, what the patient challenges are, and then how my device can optimize it.
Awesome. Thank you. Jason, any answer to the question too?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking on this one long and hard. I think one of the biggest lessons I learned overall was humility in a sense where in your high school, maybe you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond. You come to the University of Michigan, you realize that wow, everyone here has a baseline of being very smart and very accomplished and very driven. So I think it's sort of realizing that you have to not be above any job. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do those jobs that maybe that everyone's willing to do. I think that when I was doing my first internship, I was stuffing envelopes and getting ready for giveaways at the football game and doing these somewhat menial tasks. But I realized that if you're willing to do that, if you show up on time, show up with a good attitude, and are willing to do those things, that it does separate you from a very competitive marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Cameron.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think Jason nailed it. I had humility, I think is a really good thing that you're taught with the little fish in a big pond in high school, or big fish in a little pond in high school and little fish in a big pond at Michigan, especially at Michigan. I mean, there's so many brilliant minds in every class with you. So I think just learning that, being a student at Michigan and then translating that to a big company like IBM in the tech industry. I mean, I'm on calls with distinguished engineers all the time, and they are so much smarter than I am, but just coming with that humility, knowing you have a seat at the table, and just really having an open mind to learning and be curious. I would say that's kind of the good translation from what Michigan taught me in the classroom to my career in tech now.
Yeah. And Cameron, being a recent student athlete, you know it's not just about going to practice. There's so many other things that you need to do to like develop
Right.
yourself as an athlete. So, like in your experience as a follow-up, like what little things have you learned to keep doing to just continue to get better at your craft as you're kind of
Yeah.
developing into a professional?
Right. I think staying relevant, like in the news, the tech industry is developing so fast. So just constantly, when I started, I was like, oh, like I'll do my required learning that my company assigns, but go one more and look at news feeds every morning, see what's relevant in other companies, what are your competitors doing, really just always trying to stay ahead and stay relevant with your clients and in the tech industry is what I would recommend doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Jason, we're going to start with you for this next question. What is the most rewarding part of your job?
Great question. I would say that it's not necessarily in the sale, although there's a great reward in closing a sale. I think it's in the fulfillment. And what I mean by that is, let's say I convince an organization to do a suite with us, and it's a big decision. Their CFO is involved, their C-suite's involved. There's a lot of different moving parts. We finally get the deal across the finish line. Part of that is me influencing and I'm being as consultative as possible, but I am ultimately pushing the agenda of them doing the deal and closing it. And I think it's when you see that fulfilled, like you see them at their first game, so to speak, or their CEO and CFO are there and they're having just an outstanding time, or they tell you that they closed a deal in the suite. That's one of our things that we pitch is not just for fun and entertainment. It's also can have a clear straight line to ROI if you use it correctly for prospecting and for business purposes. So just when they have those wins and it's sort of they're happy, you're happy, and it's sort of like, yeah, I knew you guys were going to enjoy this, but it's just great to see that it come to fruition.
Yeah. Okay. So now like knowing more about who you're selling to, like what's the coolest organization that you've like sold a suite to?
Oh wow. I mean, we're lucky enough to have a lot of them and just entertainment has sort of that reach. I think we have a lot of people that are buying our tickets that are actually like owners of other teams. For example, we have Dan Gilbert recently came on board and did more with Rock Ventures. On we've had Matt Ishbia has been a season ticket holder for many years, and um, we just have some of those organizations coming. Oh, I think here's a good one that I'm particularly proud of. StockX, which is a local startup here in Detroit, based downtown. We're a marketplace for sneakers. So I think a lot of the athletes here probably know StockX and the sneakerheads. They're now not only do they have a suite and floor seats, but they also have their patch on our jersey.
Cool. It's cool that it's in Detroit too. That's really cool. Awesome. So Brent, same question. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Yeah, I think converting a surgeon, but having that surgeon think about the surgery and the device and the tools and devices he or she is using differently, right? If I do my job and they are thrilled with my device and what it enables them to do, it ultimately is going to reduce the total cost of care for that patient. It makes the surgeon look good. It brings down healthcare for the hospital. And ultimately, it's about the patient, right? So if the patient, is going home in 2 days and typically it's 4, and they're getting back to work, getting back to their life faster, everybody's happy. And that's kind of you know, there's a lot of steps that go into creating that, right? But that's definitely, key.
Awesome. Thanks. Cameron?
Yeah, I agree with the fulfillment of building those relationships. Helping solve problems is always good to do with the client and seeing kind of the end result of what started as something really small and then grow to being really big. But ultimately, I will say it's the I, blatantly the money. It's really nice to be able to help people, but also give yourself opportunities in your personal life. So to travel when I'm young, to provide for my family when I'm older. So big family gal. So anything to be able to grow that and do that for myself in the future is definitely good with a career in sales.
Yeah. It's good to also point out the more candid things. I
Yeah.
think that's really helpful. So I like that you said that. Okay. The next question is how did you find your position and how can student athletes best find sales positions? So, Cameron, how'd you find your position?
Yeah, so it was the Career Center. I was looking for an internship. It was during COVID, so very much shaken up. They had someone from IBM there, and I jumped on it. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was an econ major at Michigan, so sales was always an option, but I didn't think I wasn't totally interested in finding it out. But yeah, I met with the person who was hiring from IBM, and the rest was history. So another thing is just your network. I think the Career Center, to get a career in sales, yeah, use the Career Center, leverage that network, go to LinkedIn, see post Michigan grads who are near you. I'm a big proponent of meeting people in person. So I know a lot of you guys are in Ann Arbor. But if you're home for Christmas or the summer, go to your hometown LinkedIn, see who graduated from Michigan in sales and connect with them. Ask them to go get coffee. I think seeing someone in person is going to do so much more for you than doing a quick 15-minute phone call. So I would say leverage your network, marry LinkedIn, and keep trying because I know it's hard right now, but something will land.
Awesome. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, I mean, I I use LinkedIn. LinkedIn to me is like cheating. I found my job that I start Monday with Medtronic by just casually scrolling through and seeing a job that I was super interested in, and kind of submitted my resume through the black hole. Didn't really have any contacts there, but I will say early on, I use a letter winners club, and I can't stress that enough. Mainly because I really do think that people want to help you. They want to help each other. They really do. If you approach it the right way, you're gracious with, like Cam said, asking somebody to go have coffee. I would never turn that down if somebody said, "Hey, I'm in Northern New Jersey next Tuesday. Can we meet up for a half an hour?" I would never turn that down. So, I mean, I know when you're like even a year out when you graduate, I think the Letter Winners Club is free, and then there's some fees with it. I'm actually volunteering with the club right now, so we have all different types of career networking events coming up. And then become an expert with LinkedIn. Again, it's like cheating. You can type in, somebody that graduated from U of M. They don't even have to play a sport. You can type in their industry, you click on people, and it's going to bring up a range of folks that you can network with. So definitely use that as much as you can.
Yep, relationships definitely matter. Go ahead, Jason.
Funny, I have a lot in common, I guess, with Cam in some ways, and Brent. I think that LinkedIn is a great one, so I won't belabor that. Make sure you use that, and don't never be afraid to ask for a coffee, for a quick 20-minute introductory call or Zoom call if you're not in the same marketplace. I actually found my first role when I was on campus on a corkboard. I think I was in maybe South Quad, or I forget exactly where I was, but I was eating lunch and I saw a posting for the Michigan Athletic Department marketing opportunity. So I guess sort of being aware and observant and always being open to new things. And since then, to double down on what Cam said, it's really been all about network. I don't think I've had a role that I submitted for sort of from the front door and just had gotten looked at. It was always through someone in my network or a second level connection in my network making a referral or a recommendation.
Thank you. Kind of being on the subject of candidness, what are some challenges of your respected positions in industry? Brett, I honestly want to start with you because kind of like what you were saying with the medical sales industry, it can be hard to get surgeons to actually come around and build that credibility. Like, is that the biggest challenge, or like what are other challenges in medical device sales?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, a product recall would probably be the number one challenge, because then your product might be taken off the shelf because of FDA issues or a adverse event that was just bad and wasn't any part of your doing. I've had that happen, and then companies will, you're not making that commission, right? Because your product's shelved for a little bit until the FDA figures things out. Another challenge in my industry is, if I'm trying to get my products into Mount Sinai and my competitor already has the contract there, you never want devices to become just an economical barrier, right? But that's what it can become. So, on that note, I always try and join a company that has the most disruptive technology. And by disruptive, I mean a technology that not many companies have, or that are competing against you. That's why I'm actually getting back into robotics. So Medtronic's going to be second to launch a surgical robot by the end of this year. So I think there's 40 or 50 companies trying to, right? But you got to choose the technology that you have the most confidence with and you believe is the most disruptive. So that's just my industry.
Thanks. Awesome. Jason, you want to add to that?
Sure. I would say in sales as a whole, I mean, you get told no a lot. You get a lot of rejection, especially when you're in your younger search of your earlier roles. I think Cam talked about sort of doing a lot of outbound sales, a lot of cold calling and things like that. So you get told no, and you just have to learn to respond, not react, to not take things personally. They're not saying no to you. It's just not the best fit for them right now. So I think that's a challenge, is maintaining your confidence, maintaining your sort of belief in yourself and your product offering while still being able to being told no or have things go wrong. Like, product recalls, things that happen out of your control. In our industry, maybe they have a poor experience with parking or something that's completely out of our control, but you're still the face of the organization and they're going to vent to you. So just learning how to deal with those things and it's never easy, but you can certainly work on some tools to improve and to not take it to heart.
Awesome. That's great advice. Um, right back, we're gonna do Cameron next, but we're gonna also do questions from the audience. So if you haven't put any in the chat, be sure to go ahead and do that. But Cameron, honestly, have you been told no a lot, for one? How have you handled it, two? And then any other challenges, we would love to hear about that too.
Yeah, so it is. I was going to build on what Jason was saying because it is like in the tech industry, especially, I'm sure CIOs are getting 20 calls a day. So it's definitely that's really the challenge is figuring out your craft, figuring out your story to how are you going to get the leg up because there's so many cooks in the kitchen with different companies. And if like an IBM 25 years ago, we were like top notch. IBM is amazing. Now we have Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, all these competitors that are also selling great things. So really focusing on your competitors and how you can get a leg up and how I've overcome a lot of no's is staying consistent, I would say, with my prospects. So if they say no over cold call, I don't really take that as a no. I'll put them in a list and then follow up with them, not trying to sell them, but just giving them relevant industry updates. Like, hey, saw this in your industry. What, like, not even asking for a meeting, just really having touches with them, trying not to sell, I would say. So does it work? Not all the time, but sometimes you do have those little wins where they 30 30 touches later, a year later, they're like, okay, let's hop on a meeting. So even if they're not responding, just them seeing IBM and your name come up will be in their subconscious when they're looking for something new to help them in their technology stack. So that's what I would say. It's challenging, but you can do it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to say that that relationship will always matter. And maybe at some point, like you said, they might come back to it and realize, like rethink kind of what you were talking about. So it's always good to put your best foot forward whenever. So it doesn't look like we have any question. Oh, okay. David Wilma, question in the chat. When moving into a new account management role, how can you gain/regain an account or customer after either they had a bad experience with the product or bad experience with previous sales rep before you? Brent, do you have any expertise for this question?
Yeah, if you come into an account and the previous rep, was not the best, right? I still think you have to really diplomatically get to know the surgeon or that customer, why they're doing what they're doing right now. Are they open to learning, right? A lot of these, in my field anyway, a lot of surgeons can shut you down pretty quickly because they believe they're doing the gold standard right now, and there's nothing out on the market better. And for me, I have to lead clinically and mechanically, and then third party reference a lot. Oh, if I'm meeting with somebody at Mount Sinai, well, Doc, would you be interested in learning more about what they're doing at NYU because they've just adopted XYZ product and their outcomes are, have improved by this percentage or whatever. So instead of just thinking for a quick sell, you gotta pump the brakes a little bit and be that consultant. I think diplomatically, I use that word all the time. And I think that will give you credibility. And when they're ready to buy from you or ready to learn from you, they're going to let you know.
Awesome. Jason, do you have anything to add?
This is something that I run into a lot because I'm primarily an account manager that has a book of business. And oftentimes you will take over accounts that were managed by someone else. And if the experience was poor, I think it's important just to level set and say, I apologize that your experience was less than you deserve. we can't go back now and change things, but I look forward to level setting with you and doing our best to move forward and making sure you have a best in class experience. And that's fine and dandy to say, but then I think it's most importantly is gaining credibility. Brent talked a little bit about this, and our fields are different, but simply by doing what you say you're going to do, managing expectations, learning about the client, learning their why, understanding how they like to be communicated with, cadence, place, whether they like text, email, they prefer in-person, phone calls, that sort of thing. And then just following, becoming that product expert and following up and following through on those things that you say you're going to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cameron?
I don't think I have much to add. Just yeah, acknowledge it, really try to rebuild that trust, stay consistent, and eventually they'll come around. Actions speak louder than words. So if you're gonna talk the talk, also walk the walk while regaining that trust.
Yeah. Something that Maurice and Julie talk about with the Mac is being persistent, and also being consistent. So I think that definitely aligns with what you guys are saying. Another question that we actually didn't get to from the list is interesting, but can you share 3 personal qualities that you look for in an intern for a job applicant?
I can take this one. In my new role, I deal with not interns, but new hires. And I feel like a pattern for things that we look for is one, I would say coachability. I think you're like how they receive feedback on the interview and just realizing that they have an open mind to being coached. um, Hard worker and eagerness just to learn and get their feet wet and build the plane while flying it, I think is another one. And then curiosity, I think, is a big one in the tech industry, especially because there's new things popping up every day with AI, quantum computing, just a lot of stuff. So I would say those are the 3 things in an applicant.
Yeah, I think something I want to add to that is I'm looking for jobs now finishing my master's is it's not always about the skills you already have. Like coachability is definitely important when you're going to a company that has like a different culture and they might have a certain like hard skill that you can learn on the job. And so don't get discouraged when you're out there looking for jobs and like, well, I don't have that skill yet. Like as long as you're coachable and adaptable, that's like really what I think that they're looking for a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think, and I remember when I was interviewing for my internship at IBM, I was in my interview and they asked me a question about one of the IBM Watson, one of IBM technologies that I had no idea about. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. Don't try to finesse an answer and pretend like you know it. Yeah, just definitely be honest and be willing to learn, like Gabby said.
Awesome. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Jason?
I can't say it any better. She did a great job there. I would just sort of double down and say that a lot of organizations, including ours, they'll hire for attitude and for effort and for coachability first, character essentially, and be willing to teach you a specific skill set or product knowledge. So I think just telling your story and showing who you are and is number one, and being an ethical person and being a willing to learn, willing to roll up your sleeves, and the rest can be taught.
Awesome. Thank you. Brent?
Yeah, sure. 3 qualities I'd look for are 1, for that person to be disciplined. 2, to really have grit, right? And grit can mean a number of things, but when you have to get up at 5:36 every morning and into the OR at 7 a.m., that you have to have some grit to do that, whether it's raining, freezing, on a Friday morning when your friends might be golfing. You have to have that grit if you want to succeed. And then self-aware. If you're self-aware, you're going to know, do I need to get more buttoned up on this topic? Am I not representing myself, the way that successful person over there is? Am I offering the best solutions to my surgeon based on my listening ability? So I think self-awareness can take you a long way.
Awesome. Thank you for those very thoughtful answers. Those are pretty much our questions. If any student athletes have any questions, feel free to raise your hands as we kind of close out here. But thank you so much to our panelists. Can we get a little bit of a snaps or claps or something just to say thank you for your time? Your expertise is always so helpful as it can apply to every industry across the board. So we really appreciate your expertise. And for all the student athletes on here, we're going to be doing V4L credit by hand. So if you're on here, like we got you, don't worry. You should be getting notified and helper that you guys will be verified. So yeah, thank you guys and have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you
Take care.
guys. Thanks for
Thank you so
joining.
much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank
Go
you.
Blue.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Blue.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.